You are now listening to the Dual Position Podcast.
The boys are back to talk all things SuperCoach all season long.
Please welcome your hosts, Whisperer and Brew.
We are so close to the footy season, mates. So close. And a side that I feel is close to making the finals is the Warriors. Plenty of love for the Warriors among the community. Plenty of high hopes for them this year. I've chopped and changed my ladder so much, so it's hard to really give an accurate breakdown. They could fall anywhere between sort of 11th and 13th, I feel. What about you, mate?
I've got them in 12th, but I actually feel like I might have stitched them up a bit. I'm getting a lot warmer on the Warriors. I think they'll probably end up somewhere between 8th and 12th. So yeah, I'm not sure. I've liked what I've seen from them, and I like some of the signings they've got. I think they're going in the right direction this season.
Definitely. Plenty of guys that we can touch on this episode. For anyone watching on YouTube, you'll see that Brew is no longer heavily pixelated, so we've managed to work that out. He looks somehow better than what he did beforehand. It's not very hard when you got a head like his. But moving into the Warriors, mate, look, last year, up and down. I mean, the last 2 years have been up and down for them, really. It's been so much unknown about where they're going to be playing their footy, which a lot of sides can't say the same. Maybe Melbourne in that first COVID year, but everyone's getting back to some normality, but the poor old Warriors aren't. If they don't get a full season in New Zealand next year or the year after, then there's something seriously wrong. Last year, they finished 12th. They had a, 8-16 record, if I can count. They had a 5-7 record at home, which is fine for a side that's in 12th. The issue was the 3-9 record in games that they were away from home, or games that they were considered the away side. Obviously, last year, every game was away from home with them. On average, Brew, they put up 18.8 points a game, which saw them sit in 13th, and conceded 20 points a game, which saw them in 12th. So pretty much 19 points for, 20 points against, kind of there or thereabouts. If they can improve that defense a little bit, or with Ruth Walsh getting a year older, they got SJ back there. That attack can push up 3 or 4 points on average. They'll definitely be in the mix for the top 8 spot. When it comes to the gains and losses, Shaun Johnson from Cronulla, Aaron Panet from Melbourne, Jesse Arthur's on loan from Brisbane for 1 year only, and Ash Taylor has come over from the Titans. When it comes to their losses, Paul Turner from the Gold Coast to the Gold Coast Titans, Sean O'Sullivan to Penrith, Peter Hiku, Chad Townsend, and Jermaine Snua-Brown off to the North Queensland Cowboys, David Fusitu'a off to Leeds in the UK, Kane Evans off to Hull, Tom Alley, Jackson Freya were unsigned, and Leeson Armour retired, and the biggest loss of them all, Shaun Johnson to Rugby Union. When it comes to the ins, mate, no bigger in really than Shaun Johnson when it comes to the culture around that club. I think he was begging for this move. It didn't particularly work out too well at the Titans, and I think any general NRL fan loves to see SJ back playing for the Warriors.
Just footnote that it's Roger Tuivasa-Sheck to Rugby, in case
what
people
did I
get
say?
in the comments and ask. You said Shaun Johnson.
Oh, sorry, I'm just out of it. Yeah, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck to Rugby. Jesus, sorry. Yeah, Shaun Johnson didn't come to the Warriors, and then he didn't come and then leave the same season. No, RTS to Rugby. I'm so sorry.
With SJ, yeah. Look, he never wanted to leave the club, so I guess he's quite happy to be returning to the club, and I think it's the right move. I don't personally think they ever should have got rid of him. Just because they weren't winning comps with him in the side didn't mean that they needed to not offer him a contract and tell him to look elsewhere. So I'm glad he's home.
Yeah, so hopefully it works out better for him. Obviously, his best footy is probably behind him when it comes to like the sheer electricity.
Brilliance.
Yeah, like that he had, like 2012 to 15, 16. Like he was just on top of the world, and a couple of lower body injuries didn't help. A couple of rough seasons at the Sharks where I don't know, he didn't really seem to settle too well. Like he had one great season, then it just seemed to, whether it be injuries or him just not wanting to be there, whatever. But yeah, I think it's worked out well for both parties. Shaun Johnson leaves, they get Nico Hines, and then SJ gets to go back to where he really wants to go. Aaron Panet, good signing from Melbourne. No, not as much as a good prospect as someone like a Tino. Like we know Tino coming off the bench for Melbourne was very, very highly rated, and then obviously went to the Titans. Aaron Panet, similar build, or similar mold of player, I would say, but probably doesn't have the wraps on him that someone like a Tino had. But I feel like he definitely has a spot somewhere thereabouts in this Titan setup. And yeah, he could be a very, very handy addition for them.
I think he's a great addition for them. I've definitely got him in my 17. I'll say that much.
Yeah, as do I, coming off the bench. Jesse Arthurs, I also like this pickup on loan. Will fill a hole in the centres for them. They lost Peter Hicker as well. For some reason, wasn't on. Oh, he was there. Yeah, so Peter Hicker's left. They have a hole to fill there at centre.
Yeah, I've got Arthurs in the 4 jersey. I think it's down to him and Pompey for the last spot, but Pompey's got a lot of errors in his game, and I think Arthur's kind of suits their style this year. I think they're going to have an electric backline, and he fits the mold. If his defense is up to scratch, I really hope that he's the one getting that 4 jersey.
And one of the biggest feel-good stories, I would say, this preseason, Ash Taylor on a train and trial deal, obviously impressed enough to be promoted to the top 30. And yeah, just really happy for him. Like the monkey's off his back. Not his fault that he signed a massive contract. If someone waves that much money in front of you as a young kid, of course you're going to take it. So he's got rid of that stigma now, and hopefully he can find his feet and play some of the best footy that he can.
Hopefully he's kept a lot of that money because he's never getting a contract that big again. I actually haven't been able to find a spot for him in the squad. Not sure where he's going to fit, but he's certainly a handy backup for them to have.
I wanted him to start. But yeah, I mean, I watched the trial last week. He controlled a lot of the kicking, but it didn't particularly go down too well. So maybe that puts a red line for him. Cody is Cody. So we'll touch on that when we come to our sort of sides. But yeah, Ash Taylor, hopefully that he can just be a little bit more free, not so much the leader of a side. And yeah, just play his best footy. When it comes to the losses, let's touch on Tuivasa-Sheck. It's a huge loss, not only on the field, but just what he brought to the Warriors off the field. Look, originally I had Rocco Berry primed as sort of the next New Zealand fullback, and then Ruth Walsh sort of emerged, coming from the Broncos, and took that over like a house on fire. But I think it was fantastic. Like, it just shows a lot about RTS as a bloke. When he wanted to come on and play through the middle, a little bit of a 13, or he was happy to sit on the wing. He knew that he was leaving, but he didn't want to leave the club high and dry. And Roger basically just gave the keys to Ruth Walsh and said, "You have the jersey. I'll try and mentor you the best I can." So I think that it speaks a lot about RTS just as a person, that he was able to put his ego aside and do what was best for the side. And I know that as a Roosters fan, mate, you were probably devastated to see him go when he did a job for you guys on the wing.
I certainly was at the time, but we kind of replaced him with a guy called James Tedesco, so that healed the wound a little bit. But RTS is he's a fantastic bloke. He's a good fella, and you're right. Like he was very club first, team first. He wasn't about himself. He was very selfless in his decision to say, "Hey, I'll play wherever you want. Let Reece have the fullback jersey." Good man, RTS, good man.
We touched on Sean O'Sullivan in the trial roundup about why we weren't too sure. Sean O'Sullivan has left the Warriors behind a quality halfback in Sean Johnson, and he's left to go to the Panthers in a better side with a better halfback. So I'm not understanding why he's left, because he's definitely good. We saw this in the trials. Like, he is good enough to be playing first grade footy.
Oh, absolutely. I'm dumbfounded by the decision. Like, obviously, Penrith's a club everyone wants to go to, but I don't think you want to go there when Nathan Cleary and Jerome Luai are in front of you.
No. Jermaine Noah-Brown off to North Queensland. Good signing for them. Good depth signing, another middle that they can have there. The Warriors seem to be loaded with middle, so not too much skin off their nose. Paul Turner off to the Titans. Didn't really have a spot in the side for the Warriors. Doesn't really have a spot in the side for the Titans, so kind of there or thereabouts. David Fusatua seemed really unsettled the last 24 months. Like, this, ever since COVID hit, he just sort of seemed to, just not overly be settled. Who knows what's going on there, but hopefully he finds some of his best footy again playing for Leeds. I reckon the less said about Kane Evans, the better. That was a disaster, wasn't it?
He's a disaster. Good luck. See you later, mate.
Jackson free, Tom Ale unsigned. Okay, and Leeson Armel retired. Leeson Armel, a bit of a cult hero. Around the Warriors, I wouldn't be surprised to see him hang around the club a little bit. Once they get back to New Zealand, I'm sure that Leeson Armel just wants to go back to New Zealand for a year or so and just unwind. And then who knows, when the Warriors are based back in New Zealand, he's definitely someone that I could feel they come in and either like a consultant role or like a forward mentor. He's definitely a solid hand to have in your coaching staff.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully he gets a gig.
It's also worth noting that the Warriors have picked up a couple of signings for 2023. I had it on my phone, and then it just dropped off. They've got Murata Nicorima coming from Parramatta in 2023, and they've also got Luke Metcalf coming from Cronulla as well. So, not too sure where
Another half.
not too sure where Metcalf sits in that pecking order, but Nicorima is a fantastic signing for 2023. I can see by your reaction you're not too impressed.
Don't get me wrong. I really like Metcalf, but they've already got this quagmire of halves and don't know what to do with them, and they're just going to go and add another one.
Yeah. I mean, he could play a bit of fullback, but then you've got Ruth Walsh there, so what do you do? Hey, they've got a dream draw to start the season. Dragons at home, Titans away, Tigers away, Broncos home, Cowboys at home. One side in that sort of pack that played top 8 footy last year, and a lot of people aren't having the Titans playing top 8 footy this year, so yeah, pretty dream draw. There's a lot of assets there that people are targeting because of the draw.
Oh, there's quite a few blokes in this side that I am really, really interested in. I've got AFB in my side at the moment, I'm pretty sure. I've got Alyssa Katoa, who I'm really set on now with that draw and the fact that he's playing on the right outside SJ. And then obviously Aitken, Curran, they're the flavours of the month. There's just so many options in this side when it comes to Supercoach. And then, bam, they've got a fantastic draw to start.
Couple of good pods in the backline as well, and then SJ seems to be one of the most favoured halves because we'll probably never get him at this price again if he can find his form again. When it comes to injuries and suspensions, they've got Reece Walsh out till round 3. They're going to try and press this. They're going to do the Latrell Mitchell thing and try and get a week taken off this because of the All-Stars game. They've got Tohu coming back anywhere from round 6 to 10. I've got it probably on the later end of that spectrum, probably rounds 8 to 10, coming off the back of that ACL. And then I think Matt Lodge is also out for a week or two. I don't think he's there for round 1. So something to worth note. What do you want to do, mate, today? Do you want to do the best 17 or you want to do their sort of round 1 17s?
I'll be doing the best 17. I'm just looking up to see. I don't think I have Matt Lodge on my list of suspended players.
I couldn't find anything, but I also remember reading that he might not be there.
I know.
Round 1.
He's out round 1, back round 2. I do have him on the list.
All right, so let's just say we're naming our side from round 3. So we'll skip the first 2 weeks because then that's when Reece Walsh comes back. So at fullback, obviously no surprise. I think you and I both will have Reece Walsh. Absolute revelation last year, came onto the scene, killed it. Just a lot of flair, he's just got a bit of swagger about him. He took it basically from game 1 as well, from when he came in and started. Like, he didn't shy away from it, and plenty of highlights for him. And I think with a good half in SJ and Cody Nicorima as well, that he will just go strength to strength this year.
Yeah, I expect a good season, but I would kind of taper the expectations a little bit. I think some people think he's going to be, Tom Trbojevic this year. I don't think he's going to be up in that, top 4 or 5, but he'll be a lot like Ponga, I think. I think you'll see he'll be like a 60 to 65 average fullback, which is still very solid. Yeah,
that's my next question. I was going to ask where you project him. I've got him sort of in the upper echelons of 65 plus, so I've got him somewhere between 67 and 70. If he gets the goal kicking, that's a caveat. If he doesn't have the goal kicking, then I'll probably drop him down to 61, 62. But yeah, really excited to see what Reece Walsh develops into as a Queenslander myself. And then we move into the wingers. One of them picked themselves in Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, who could be a sneaky pod. Probably one of the biggest pod shouts I've got, especially if he's on that right edge with SJ. Like, we know SJ just loves that bullet ball to the wingers, and who knows what's going to happen. DWZ, I think he's at mid 400k, sort of 440, 450. Good work rate, good tackle bar stability. Jesse Ramian with better try scoring. So, yeah, he could definitely shoot up to 60, 65 if him and SJ click on that combination.
Definitely good, and I hadn't actually factored in the whole SJ right side winger of the past situation. It's not a bad shout. I just think there's better shouts, and I personally won't be spending that much money in the centres.
I prefer, I don't know how spicy this is, but plenty of people are going Tyrell Sloan. I'd rather go DWZ for the first 5 weeks. Similar price, better draw.
I don't think he's got as much electric upside that Sloan has, but I think DWZ is a much safer option given the draw, and it'll probably equal out. I would say DWZ probably, I hate saying that, DWZ.
Doesn't roll off the tongue too well.
No, he'll probably average more, I'd say, to start the season, and Sloan will have more by the end of the season.
Oh yeah, 100%. When it comes to total average, Sloan will out-average him. But for the first 5 or 6 weeks, I just think DWZ has a better floor and a better ceiling. So I'd prefer that shout over someone like Sloan. I'm not looking at either because I'm going dirt cheap in my centre wings to afford some other people. But yeah, I just much prefer DWZ over someone like Sloan for the first month and a bit. I'm assuming he's picked in your side, like no debating there.
No, yeah, he's on the wing.
And someone that really impressed me in the trials last week, Marcelo Montoya. He makes his way into my wing spot too with a really good combination with Rocco Berry, who I've also named at left centre.
Yep, 100%. I'm agreeing on that. And they were very, very impressive on the weekend. I'm looking to see if they can do it again this weekend.
I'm very excited to see what Rocco Berry can become. Plenty of raps on him coming out of camp. He can play both sides of the field. He's not limiting himself to being a left-sided centre. So if anything happens, he can definitely shift over. A very, very good defender. Very, very good tackle efficiency. And he just needs to find a little bit of attack. And at 320k, he could be anything. Like I'm very excited to see what Rocco Berry can become, considering he's played very little NRL. Coming from a rugby background, obviously. Like I can't talk up enough about how keen I am just to watch him from an NRL's perspective and develop as a player.
I think he's a real sneaky shout to start. Like 320, even if you go in the cheapy centre range, 320s there or thereabouts. I don't mind it. I've been looking at it. I have in the last week have sides where they have Berry, but given I'm pretty much locked into going Tom Turbo myself now, I've had to shed every dollar I could. So Berry's not currently in, but he's someone I'm seriously thinking about sneaking in as a pod. Yeah,
if someone like a Will Panatini doesn't deliver it yet again in the trial, I think Berry's only 40k more. So if you wanted to find the extra 40k and go Rocco Berry's a bit of a pod shed over someone like a Panasini or someone like a Talon May, if he's in your side. A little bit of news as I'm recording live. We're recording this on, what is it, Wednesday today? Yeah, Thursday, sorry. Talon May's been named to play New South Wales Cup this weekend, so probably put the red line through him there, unfortunately. So yeah, if you find the extra money, Rocco Berry could be a fantastic shout. And you also mentioned, Brew, you have Jesse Arthurs in your centre wing spots when we were touching on the inclusions. I've also got Jesse Arthurs as my 4. Probably a shootout between him and Adam Pompey. I know that there's a young bloke, I don't want to butcher his name, but he's been named to play this weekend in the trials. I wouldn't read too much into that. I'd probably have Jesse Arthurs or Adam Pompey as the first 2 choices there for the vacant right centre spot.
Agree. I think it's the only position really up for debate is that centre spot. I think the rest of them pretty much locked in.
All right, so the halfbacks and 5/8, Sean Johnson, obviously he's not signing to fill the water bottles and run the oranges out at halftime. He'll be there at 7. Been practicing his goal kicking this preseason, but we're not too sure whether it'll be him or Reece Walsh. We know that SJ does have those lower body concerns, so trying to limit the kicking might be the best option, but definitely trials will help us get a better understanding of that. And the 6, I've also got Cody Nicorima. Bit of a shootout here between Chanel Harris-Tavita and Ash Taylor himself as well, but I've got Cody edging him out the best.
I've got SJ, but I've got it with CHT myself. I think they've been working pre-season on CHT being the starter, and they've been working on a few combinations. So I think he's going to get first crack.
Fair enough. Time will tell. I think you can go either of the 2, depending on what you want. Chanel is probably more of your running half next to SJ, whereas Cody is more of that controlling guy, and it'll be interesting to see what option Nathan Brown wants to go down, whether he wants 2 controlling halves to allow Reece Walsh to play his best, or he wants 2 sort of runners in Walsh and Chanel Harris-Tavita, and he wants SJ to be controlling or whatnot. I'm not too sure as to... I think it comes down to how they want to use SJ, to be honest. Depends if they want to unleash SJ or if they want to have him just play that sort of... not game
manager.
Yeah, game manager. That's what I was trying to get my head around.
I think he's going to game manage. I think that's going to be his role, to control the side, and that others will play off the back of that. He's still going to have spark and he's still going to have involvement, but I think his primary goal is a good kicking game, put him in good areas, momentum, field possession. I think that's why they've got SJ.
Any love for you've got Chanel Harris-Tavita as your shout. I've got Cody. I've got no love for Cody for Classic. But any love on your side for Chanel Harris-Tavita, or are you just worried that job security is probably a little bit too flimsy?
the job security does concern me, but I think CHT's around the 320 mark, which is an absolute steal if true, because his previous numbers are way better than a 320 price range. So if he was named, he's certain. Like I would, if CHT's named, I'd take him over your boy Hastings, for example.
What about someone like an Adam Clune? I think Adam Clune's 290 off the top of my head. So Clune's a touch cheaper than CHT. I think so. You stall for time. Give me your thoughts on Chanel Harris-Tavita, I guess, from his Supercoach. What you predict from him while I get up Adam Clune's price?
I just think he's a better game manager than Cody is. Cody showed last year that he could have moments where he was really high and he'd do really flashy things. And then I remember when everyone jumped on the bloke when he was killing it, then all of a sudden he went down the toilet and he went missing at key moments, and he went missing in a big way. I don't think CHT is going to do that. I feel like,
are you just putting a bit of bias against Cody because he nearly single-handedly ruined your season last year at about round 19?
No, I think he's the best pick, to be honest with you. I don't really care either way. It doesn't bother me who they pick. If they're going to pick, though, they need to stick, is one thing I will say. But I just think that it should be CHT.
Yeah,
I think Cody is more. Cody makes a bit. Cody's my 14. Spoiler alert. But I think he is better coming off the bench because he can fill more than, say, CHT can coming off the bench.
So Chanel Harris-Tavita is 319, available dual position, half and 5/8. And Adam Clune is 293k and halfback only. So what's that? 30k cheaper, or 30k more expensive than someone like a Clune, and then you get the upside of the 5/8. Or would you take a punt on Clune over CHT?
No, I don't think I would. I think Clune's a really good player, but Newcastle worry me this year. They really do.
You know what, mate? When I sat down with you in October and said, hey, do you want to do this full time with me? I didn't expect us to be having an Adam Clune versus Chanel Harris-Tavita debate 2 weeks out from the season. So, interesting turn. Look, I'll make it no secret. I've got Chanel Harris-Tavita as my 6, and I've also got Cody as my 9, as my 14. So, no, sorry, I've got Cody as my 6 and Chanel Harris-Tavita as my 14. The other way around from what you have it. So, that probably just goes to show you that they're interchangeable. And that's probably, yeah, like whoever's at the 6 will be at, the other will be at the 14, you would imagine. Let's touch on SJ, mate, because I know that he is owned by the masses. He was in my side when you and I did our team reveals way back when. I've gone cold. Basically the week after we did that podcast, and I've never warmed up to SJ again.
Yeah, I haven't really. I've had fleeting moments with SJ just because it is a nice price and the duel is very, very handy. I raised my eyebrows before when you said that he had been goal kicking. If he's goal kicking, it's a different conversation. If he's goal kicking with that draw, I'd probably pick him, to be honest with you. It's just I don't trust that.
He'd be practicing because he's probably second in line, worst case. Like, it'll either be him or Walsh, and then whoever doesn't will be the backup. So, of course, he's got to be practicing.
Yeah.
Sean Johnson.
Sure. Like, without goal kicking, I think I've got him as a trap because I think people think he's going to be the 65 average Sean Johnson of old, and I just don't think that he's going to be. I think his role's going to change a little bit, and he's not going to get as much of the creative junk that he used to, piss out for fun. I've got him as a little bit of a trap, but if he's goal kicking, it changes my mind a little bit. So that is an interesting point.
So Sean Johnson at 467k versus Toby Sexton at 434k. That seems to be the big, not debate, but that seems to be what people are having in their sides. Where are you leaning on that fence?
I think I'd take SJ.
To be honest, sorry. So Sexton will be locked in will be goal kicking, and then he's got AJ Brimson next to him. I don't know if and obviously Sexton has the better work rate out of the two. No denying that.
It's a tough one, but I've got 10 plus years of love for Sean Johnson as an absolute SuperCoach weapon, and that gives me the faith that I don't have yet in Sexton after 4 games.
The amount I've talked him up,
I think I'd go SJ.
The amount I've talked him up, I've probably got 10 years of love for Sexton with the amount that I've rabbed him up, despite only playing 4 games. The front rowers, mate, they picked themselves. Matt Lodge, Adam Fanua-Blake, you and I, both our desks were raised an inch off the ground after watching AFB in the very, very short time that we saw of him in the trials. Looks lean, looks fit. The coaches love him. Everything points towards AFB being the guy, and he is. He's training the house down. We'll just go out and say it. How much are we creating on this AFB debate, or is he going to be the guy? I mean, I think you tipped him as a top 5 front row forward about 2 months ago, and if he stays injury free, I don't see why he isn't. And at 505k as well, like that's the lowest that will get AFB. He won't go below 505k if he does what you and I think he's going to do.
Yeah, I think he's going a 65 plus average this year. I think he's pick him at 505 and you can pretty much hold him for the season. I keep having a debate whether or not I go Payne Haas or AFB, and I just think that I'm going to get similar output from both, but one is 80k cheaper than the other. So I'm really high on AFB, and I think he's in for a very big season.
I've got Payne Haas around 72, 73. I've got AFB around 64, 65. Is 8 points really worth the 80k? I'm not sure. That's the hard thing. Like, is Payne Haas going to burn you? No, I don't think so. And that's the reason why I'm going away from that and going to someone like an AFB, is because I feel like Payne Haas will always be in reach. And AFB, if you miss it, AFB can go up 150k within the space of 6 weeks, or not yet, 150k in 6-7 weeks, and then you scramble and to find 150k. Whereas Payne Haas, you pick him, you're not going to lose cash, but I don't think you're going to make a whole lot either.
Yeah, I think he's within reach, so that's why I haven't opted at the moment to start with him. He's been in and out of my side. I think I prefer going Fanua-Blake, especially with the draw. You never know, he might get a few meaties, or I saw him on the weekend, throw I think it was a line break assist. So, he's got good hands. I just feel like with the draw, with the potential, with the fitness, and with his leadership within that team, he's going to really step up over the opening 4 to 6 weeks.
10k cheaper, we can get Matt Lodge as well. Any thoughts on Matt Lodge? Won't play Origin. Had a real bounce back year last year. I think he was available at 320k last year. I tipped him for a huge season. Did his hamstring, I think, round 2 or round 3. Then got the move to the Warriors and just became like just the old Matt Lodge. Like Matt Lodge from years gone by averaged 62, 63, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. And so that was a fantastic score for your front row forwards. And he looked like that last year. And people worried about the game moving away from guys like him. But I was really impressed with how he stepped up and was just producing week in, week out. Obviously, he has a hot head. We know that. But when it comes to from what he was doing on the field, like I was very impressed with Matt Lodge.
2 years ago, we all jumped on when he came back to the NRL. We all jumped on Matt Lodge, and I think a lot of us held Matt Lodge for a majority of the season. He was just a stalwart. Like, you always knew you were going to get, about 50, 55 points a week at the time, and that was good enough. When he went to the Warriors, he seemed to take it to another level. And in terms of the rule changes and whatnot, the rule changes can benefit anyone if you think about it. Like, if you're a front row forward that's got a big motor and you're running at forwards that are getting tired and backs that are getting tired, then there's going to be holes there for you too. Holes to free an arm, holes to, throw a pass and put a guy through a gap or run over the top of someone. So I think people with the rule changes thinking that it only applies to backs isn't correct. It can certainly apply to the big men too, in my opinion.
Yeah, because the big men get tired. No denying that. But that means the defense also gets tired as well. I think you raise a great point. The 9, when it comes to the hooker, there's a lot of Warriors fans don't seem to like Wade Egan. They feel like he stifles the attack or whatever. But I feel like Wade Egan is too good not to have in your side, but he's not the kind of guy to bring off the bench. I feel like Wade Egan can start the game, give you a really good foundation, and then you can bring a little bit of flair after that. And that's the reason why I've got him as my 9. No love for him for SuperCoach, because I feel like the minutes won't be there, depending on if they carry CHT, Jazz, Cody, whoever off the bench. There'll always be the question over his minutes. But I feel like he's just too good to leave out of the side completely, and he's not the kind of guy that I'd have coming off the bench, so that leaves him starting for mine.
Yeah, look, I don't particularly rate the bloke too highly, but I do have him as the 9. Personally, If I was doing their squad, I'd build Cody Nicorima and turn him into a 9. But I don't see that happening. So, yeah, Egan's the 9. No interest from me, Supercoach wise. Just a average kind of hooker, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to set the world on fire.
No, less said about him, the better. But yeah, I do like him as a foundation setter. Hey, let's talk these back rowers because we've been presented two really good options when it comes to Supercoach. One I'm going colder on, and that is Ewan Aitken. I don't know. He was great last year. Fantastic. I think he averaged 80-odd in the games that he spent that he wasn't injured. So he was phenomenal. But can he do it again? That's the big question. Playing on the left, so won't be with Sean Johnson, and that's the reason why I much prefer the other back row that we'll talk about in a second. But where are you thinking with Ewan Aitken? Obviously, he has the 2RF centre wing eligibility, which is highly, highly desired.
I've gone away from it myself as well. When I saw the game, his involvement wasn't as much as I liked, and that did concern me a little bit. But I think I've said, I can't preach that we don't want to take too much from the trials for certain players. But I was a little bit worried with his involvement that he did hang back and not get involved more in the play. 500K is somewhat of an awkward price if he doesn't do the things that we all think and hope that he's going to do and be a 65 or 70 average back rower based on what we did see in the sample size last year. Then it could just become I wouldn't say an awkward hold because at center I'm sure there's still value there, but personally I've gone the cheaper route, and I just feel like there's points in Eli Katoa, there's money to be made in Eli Katoa. And I really think he's pushing towards some type of breakout season. I've got him as my X factor in this squad. I'm pretty much set that I'm definitely going to take this guy now.
Oh boy, I wish I had that prepped because I remember when we did the 2RF breakdown. Didn't someone on this podcast absolutely slam Eli Katoa? I made this big spiel about why he could definitely jag a bench spot and then work his way back from that after Nathan Brown. And I think someone on this podcast maybe disagreed with me and potentially gave him the Sean Lane treatment.
I can't remember. Maybe I was on the beers.
I can definitely
things change in Supercoach.
I can definitely remember it. I'll have to find that one to play back next week. But hey, mate, Ewan Aitken, 486K, available centre wing 2RF. 499K, we can get Jack Bird. Where on the fence are you sitting between Aitken and Bird?
I'd probably flip a coin. I honestly don't know. I'm kind of sitting on the fence here. Aitken's been in my side for probably 80% of the preseason, or since the team picker came out to now. So I'll have to lean with Aitken, I'd say.
Aiken's been in my side since the day Supercoach opened until yesterday when he exited it for the first time. So very interesting. Look, rounds 20 to 24 were the games that he had sort of non-injury affected games at the back row. 81 Supercoach average, 51.6 base, 68.4 base power, 4 tries, 2 line breaks, 21 tackle busts, 10 missed tackles, 0 offloads. The bloke does not pass the ball. I think there was a really good stat getting around about how he had, in all the games he played in the back row, he never made a pass, even to his centre. And his final 3-round average was 62.8. So I think that's when the tries dried up and the points sort of went down a little bit. 486K. If these tries don't come, the thing with him is he's got a shelf life, I feel. And it's a case of whether... All right, I'll put this question to you. Who comes out when Tohu comes back? Because Tohu's going to go to 13, and then Josh Curran's going to go to an edge. But is it for Aitken, and then Aitken pushes Arthurs out? Or is it for Eli Katoa? Because I feel like if Eli Katoa lights the world on fire, you can't take the jersey off him.
Very interesting question, and I don't know the answer because Tohu on the edge would play on the right side.
Tohu's not going to play on the edge, though. Tohu's come out and said he's a middle. Nathan Brown said he's a middle. Tohu prefers playing in the middle. So Josh Curran's on is going to get shifted out, and then Tohu will play 13. And then it's a case of, who comes out? Does Josh Curran play on the left edge, and then Arthur drops out, and then Aitken pushes to the centres, or like what's the case? Like it's for the first time.
Easiest solution is obviously just to move Aitken into centre. He
Yeah.
played there for years and years and years. I think it'll be a shootout. I think it'll be best man wins. Go out there, perform. Whoever's the best back rower over the first 6 to 10 weeks, when Tohu comes back, they'll be the casualty and they'll get shuffled around, I suppose.
It's a great problem to have if you're Nathan Brown, because they obviously had Ben Murdoch-Masila come into the side last year and didn't set the world on fire and probably didn't deliver as best as he wanted to or the best that he could. And then you've got this guy, Eli Katoa, who got dropped to reserve grade, has come back with like a fire under his belly, stick up his arse. Like, he has trained the house down. He's been one of the best performers all preseason. So that's basically what you want. That's the response you want from a guy that got dropped. A young kid that got dropped. Plenty can chuck their toys out of the pram and give it up. But it seems like Eli Katoa has, not taken it personally, but taken it as motivation and gotten back to what he wants to be. And we know he's got all the potential in the world to be an absolute bolter. And all the talk is that he'll start on the right edge and he'll start in my side. He's specifically requested to play outside Sean Johnson as well, which is a huge tick in my book. He's probably the guy that I am more, like, he's the one that's raised the most in my books in the last 2 weeks. I'm so keen on Eli Katoa, and it's going to take a lot to drag him out of my side if he's named come Teamless Tuesday.
Absolutely. I think he's become a bit of a bolter. I don't think he was on too many people's radars until the last few weeks. And since we saw his performance on the weekend, we found out the news from a few sources that, he was training the house down, I guess, to use a cliche term, and then
Love that term.
Playing outside SJ. Well, 350 or 40 or however much he costs sounds like a bit of a steal. We've seen what he can do in the past.
It's unders.
Without SJ.
It's unders. Like, for the price he's at, it's unders for what he can produce. So that's it for Eli Katoa. Number 13, Josh Curran. Absolutely tore the house down last year. Like, he belted onto the scene. He was scoring tries for fun. Very frustrating to watch because he just dragged them out of nowhere. I'm not keen this year, and I've copped it. I've copped it for saying that. 585k available at 2RF. Last year averaged 67, owned by 8% of teams. I'm not keen on him at 13. I know people can say that he's going to float in and out. He's going to play that Tohu role. He'll play on the edge a little bit and whatever, but I just don't see it. I didn't see it in the All-Star game. The trials will tell an interesting point. I'm not keen. I feel like there's too many what-ifs when it comes to Josh Curran, and if you're paying nearly 600k for a guy, I don't want to be asking what-ifs. I want to be dealing in absolutes. So, I don't know. I know that you have a lot of... I think he's a fantastic NRL player. Don't get me wrong. If he signed for the Tigers, man, I'd be over the moon doing backflips. But when it comes to SuperCoach, at him at 13, him on the edge is a very different situation. But him at 13, I'm definitely not keen on.
I don't mind the at 13 thing. I don't even mind the Madison at 13 thing. I've always liked locks. I typically have gone for locks over edges until the rules changed. So I don't mind Curran this season. For me, it's always just been Madison's there and he's cheaper. Why would I take Curran when I can get Madison? And then even Taumalolo as well. He's 100k cheaper. And prior to the news, obviously, that he's carrying a hammy, I was more interested in saving that money there and hoping that Taumalolo, who's a proven long-term guy, can go back to those areas. So Curran comes with a little bit of risk, but I don't think it's as bad as kind of what you're saying. I think he'll be a really good average. I think he'll average 60 plus. I'm just not sure if he's going to average 67 like he did last year.
I'll give you a couple of stats. These are potentially skewed. Like, you can make stats for any argument you want. But last year, he averaged 67. He went over that average 27% of the time last year. So 63% of the time, he went under 67. And when I'm paying 600k for a guy, I don't want to do that. Look, granted, it's a bit slanted because he came off the bench and played a couple of games at 13, couple of games in the back row or whatever. But the thing that but the thing I want to highlight is in 4 weeks? In 7 weeks, he had 2 tries, 3 try assists, 4 line breaks, 4 line break assists in 7 weeks on the edge. I just don't think the numbers are sustainable at 13. And that's the sticking point for me. You can say he's going to float in and out of attack on the edge or whatever, but he's going to be spending a large majority of his time at 13 in the middle. It's the same reason why I wasn't overly keen on Cam McInnes for the exact same reason. Like the same reason I'm not overly keen on Brandon Smith. You lose that attack. Playing on an edge, you can target your halfback and centres and run good lines there. At 13, you're running into the big boys in the middle. You've got less room to be creative, less room to sort of get on the outside of a man because there's always a big body on the inside. I just feel like his base power is like 55, which, yeah, I mean, it's okay, but that attack dries up. That's a little bit less than what he's going to average. And I'm not saying he's a trap, not at all. I just don't feel he's this golden egg that what everyone's hoping he's going to be. And that's my big thing.
We will find out soon, mate. We will find out soon. 46 base is pretty good, but
56 base power. So I'll either be very smug after 5 weeks when the draw dries up, or I will be ranked 20,000th and copying it from everyone. So it's the beauty of making content in SuperCoach, mate. It's the beauty. Hey, the bench, you've got Cody Nicorima as your 14. I've got Chanel Harris-Tavita as my 14. As we said before, they're interchangeable. The benches, like the other bench spots, are interesting. I've got Jazz Tavanga as my 15. I feel like he can just cover 13, back row if he needs to, prop. He can cover hooker. I mean, like he's just a bloke that just doesn't care what's got to be done. He'll just get it done. I really like Jazz.
Just realised I don't have Jazz in my team.
Oh, quickly, you better make that change on the fly. Because Jazz has to be there for me. Like he's just a bloke. Yeah, he's a bloke that you want on your side.
I don't know who I'd drop.
He's a bloke that you want on your side. Like if you're down and out, you're middle forward, you're battered, bruised, your coach has hooked you off. You see Jazz coming on, you think, all right, we're sweet here. Jazz is just going to give his all for 25, 30 minutes. He's just going to rip in and not care about what happens to him. I've also got Aaron Panet. It was a toss up between him or Ben Murdoch-Masila. When it comes to this bench spot, this is the thing when you carry a utility 14, you only got three really bench spots to play your middles in, and how are we going to do that? I've gone with Aaron Panet, and shout out to Anton Posa. I've also gone with Bunty Afoa as my 17.
Okay. I've got Bunty in my 17. I've got Aaron Panet as my 16 as well. I don't think he moved to that club to not play within the 17. I had Cody at the 14, as already discussed. I had Bailey Sirenen in the 15.
You've got a big heart on for Bailey. He was your bolter. Before Eli Katoa like hit the ground running, I'll let everyone know, Brew had this like sneaky pod that he didn't want to tell anyone about, and it was Bailey Sirenen. And yeah, unfortunately, Eli Katoa has taken that limelight. I'd have Jazz over Bailey. I know that you love him, but you've got to have Jazz in there.
Yeah, I would. Jazz would have to be there over Bailey, and I've got Ben Murdoch-Masila as my 18. So basically our squads are exactly the same. We've just got a couple of people.
We've just got the 6 and 14
switched.
Flipped around, yeah.
Which everyone's debating who's going to be the half. So there's no surprise that if we're going to have a difference, it's going to be in that position.
Definitely. Mate, let's talk cheapies. Let's talk Aaron Panet, because for me, he was in a very similar boat to Ethan Bullimore 2 weeks ago. So obviously we weren't keen on Bullimore at 280. We didn't feel like there was a whole lot of value there. If we're not keen on Ethan Bullimore at 280 with dual position, I don't see how we can be keen on Aaron Panet at 280 with only the single position.
No, I'm finding it hard this season personally to fund guys that are in this kind of awkward price range, especially in a position like front row forward. I'm really hoping we get Max King. Otherwise, you've got Moiroa. Who's the other duel? The fella from the Knights. Hopefully we get him. So I'd rather save the money because you're going to need the money. This year we've got a couple of blokes that are extremely expensive. And if you want to have these guys on your side, you've got to kind of shred that cash anywhere you can. So Penet's a no for me. Bullimore's a little bit different because potentially a guy like Bullimore could be your second front row forward if he were to start the season and he's there for 5 or 6 weeks.
He is my second front row forward now as we speak.
Mine's Ryan James. I just have this feeling that with Flegler suspended for the first 3 weeks, James will get the start. And I don't think that when Flegler comes back, he'll immediately displace James. I think it'll take a few more weeks. So I'm hoping James can start well enough to get me, say, even if it's just 50, 55 points a week, to save me the cash that I need to use in other areas, and then make some cash on the back of that because, he's not priced at a 50 plus average. So I'd make a sneaky bit of cash.
He
and
ain't
then hopefully
he ain't starting in my book. Not with the way Kobe,
I think he will, but
not with the way Kobe Hetherington played in the trials. I feel like you move Pat Carrigan to front row, Kobe Hetherington comes in and plays 13. I don't see well where Ryan James starts, unfortunately. I want him to because
we will see.
Ryan James, bit of a SuperCoach trivia. This is some pub knowledge for anyone out there. Ryan James and Andrew Fafita both have the combined highest score for a front row forward with 150 points. So yeah, just a bit of random trivia that I know that I shouldn't know. But I do. So if Ryan James could hit 150 the first 3 weeks, mate, this podcast better be everyone's number one. Because if Bruce making a shout for big Ryan James, but yeah, look, Aaron Panet, no, I'd much rather Ethan Bullymore. If I had to pick one of them, even if they're both coming off the bench, I'm taking Bullymore just because the fact that he's got the duel. Josh Alloway is out for a couple of weeks. I don't really think Bullymore. I don't really think Panet gets huge minutes, even if Matt Lodge is suspended for that first week. I think there's just better options at the Warriors that they'll use, and they might bring Panet on as a bit of a impact player. Mate, is it fair to call AFB a stud, or is he more of an X factor now before he proves himself to be that elite guy?
Yeah, I think you'd have to throw him. I think he will be a stud, but I think he probably falls more in the X factor category.
And who is your biggest trap when it comes to the New Zealand Warriors?
It was actually SJ if he's not kicking. For the reasons I stated earlier, not that he's going to have a bad season, but I don't think he's going to have a 65 average plus season and be the SJ that was at the Warriors previously.
Oh, I want to say Josh Curran. I really want to say Josh Curran. I want him to average 60 points a game. That's 7 points of decreased value. I don't know if I've got
You can say it. I wanted to say Reece Walsh, but then I was like, I'll get absolutely savaged for that.
Warriors fans will rinse you for saying Reece Walsh.
Lucky I didn't say it.
I'll say Cody Nicorima as my trap if he starts. Just so just so I can be safe there. Hey, that's going to wrap it up, mate. We've got one more team left. We've got the Tigers. I really don't want to talk about them, even as a Tigers fan. I've redone my ladder today with sort of the updated changes. And
Where do they last?
My boys are getting we're getting 5 spoons this year because we've got 5 captains. So give one to Madge as well after he's sacked in round 8. Who knows? That's going to wrap it up for today, guys. I've been your host, SC Whisperer. I've been joined, as always, by Brew SC. SuperCoach is just around the corner. We've got a couple of groups. Brew has made the Dual Position Podcast overall group. I've obviously got my own SC Whisperer one. Next podcast, we will announce those codes that you can join. I've got some pretty cool prizes in my SC Whisperer one. And then I think the Dual Position Podcast group is just for a bit of bragging rights. You can see just by how many thousands of places I beat Brew by this year. Mate, where can we find you where everyone wants to go ask you questions?
At BrewSC22 on Twitter. And I've been quite active lately, so if you want to chat SuperCoach, come hit me up. 22
stands for the amount of 1,000 places he'll be behind me this year as well. So I've been your host, SC Whisperer. You've been listening to the Dual Position Podcast. I very much thank you all for joining us once again. Brew, mate, until next time, ciao for now.
Yeah, so I'll just point out that I beat Josh by over 29,000 ranks last year.
Hey,
ciao for now.
Wasn't that
bad.
Bye.